This is the Newsload.
Hi, I'm Carrie Anne Stevenson. Welcome to Newsload. Today we're interviewing Ryan Belleville. How are you, Ryan?
Good, Carrie Anne. How you doing?
Amazing, amazing. How you been?
I've been good. I've been busy with life stuff. It's a little work stuff has been quiet because of the entire industry shut down for global picketing. But I've been getting my steps in on the picket line, walking around Disney and Netflix and places like that. Yeah.
Did you put like glitter on your sign and like effort into it, or?
I think you can tell how cynical and jaded and older an actor is by how little work they put into it. I've got lots of good SAG-AFTRA cutoff shirts I wear. I've walked around. I've shown some midriff. You got to show the producers what they're missing. And then, but other than that, that's about as much work as I've done. My brother's a writer, though, so he's written all the slogans on his sign. I think the most I wrote, even though I am a writer as well, but the most I've written on my sign is, "I'm just a pretty face. You need to pay the writers more to have me say whatever, write something clever." So that's the kind of stuff I'm doing.
And
but
the
it's great.
John Travolta chin, my goodness.
Oh, yes. I got a real butt chin. I was very self-conscious when I was a little kid. I'm like, I don't want a dimple on my chin. And you're like, it's great.
It is great. So I guess we'll start at the beginning of your story. Where were you born?
I was actually born, so this is a little confusing because it's a bit mixed up online, but I was actually born in St. Catharines, Ontario, because we lived in Niagara-on-the-Lake, but there was no maternity ward in Niagara-on-the-Lake. And then I grew up in Calgary. So if you go to Calgary, Alberta, and you read in the article, it always says Calgary-born Ryan Belleville. Anything that's written in St. Catharines, Ontario says St. Catharines-born Ryan Belleville. And then Niagara, they always say Niagara-born Ryan Belleville. So, but I am St. Catharines, Ontario, the Garden City, which if you've been to St. Catharines, I don't know what they're gardening, but it isn't Hope. That's for sure. It's definitely not Hope. That is the saddest bus station I've ever been to.
But you grew up in Calgary?
I sure did, yeah. Cowtown, Canada's Texas.
So the Calgary Stampede and lots of steak. And
I grew up going to the Stampede and eating steak and hanging out with real like prairie hockey kids. And I don't have too much of the accent anymore unless I'm in Canada and I'm drinking. As soon as I get back to Canada, say I have a beer or two with some friends, then it starts coming back. That Alberta accent really starts kicking in, buddy. But I've kind of shaved it off a bit. And my kids are little LA kids. I have little California kids. So they have a real California accent. So they can't even do it. I've tried to teach them how to say, "How's it going, eh?" And they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" They can't do it. So
adorable. But you're trying,
I'm trying.
And
I got to preserve a bit of it.
You give them poutine and maple syrup, and
we have always had maple syrup. Usually we do poutine for Canada Day. We'll make homemade poutine or go to a party. That's been the last couple of years. We'll do that. Yeah.
And do you have brothers or sisters?
I have one brother, and he's a writer producer, and he lives in LA as well. He's on he's not currently writing on anything because of the strike as well, but he's a writer on home economics on ABC normally, but he's been a writer producer on a lot of shows, Cobra Kai, Angie Tribeca, Brockmire, Man Seeking Woman. So a lot of stuff over the past few years. Busy man. The Unicorn, bunch of shows.
Those are great shows.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've kind of been in TV and film and such for a while. I remember you in a preview ziplining naked down to a stage at one point in your like teenage sort of romps. What show was that?
That was for a movie called Going the Distance, which was also a National Lampoon's Going the Distance, which has not wound up on streaming at all. I don't know why they haven't ended up streaming it yet, but it hasn't ended up streaming, which is a shame because that movie was actually incredibly popular for a long time. But with the death of the 99-cent DVD bins, so went people watching that movie, I guess. But you couldn't go through a Walmart in America without finding that movie at some point for a while. But that was a good old Canadian sex romp that kind of kicked it off in the States and was popular with Jason Priestley. And it was the first time I worked with Jason. First time I met Strombo. Who else was in that movie? Avril Lavigne was in that movie. It was crazy. It was fun.
Oh my God. What was Jason Priestley like? Brandon from 90210.
He's a
Ooh.
great. He's hilarious. He's a really really funny guy, and he's a super professional, great on set. Everybody loves him. I've worked with him a bunch over the years, and he's just a great guy. Like everybody loves working with him. He doesn't take himself seriously at all. He's always happy to be, the brunt of the joke or put himself anywhere. So there's a reason he keeps working.
I
It's not
love
just a pretty
seeing,
face.
oh, he's definitely a pretty
Yep.
face. Oh, Jason Priestley. I love seeing him in random things like the small party out on Tombstone or
Mhm.
when he hit on Britney Spears in the Boys music video, but then Mike Myers got her, like just
Yep.
really random Jason Priestley. But enough about him. Um, Tell me about your mom.
My mother's a stage actress. She's recently mostly retired, but was a stage actor for years at the Shaw Festival. So, but she's mostly retired, but she's done lots of shows and stuff like that. So she grew up in America and moved to Canada and stayed here because she had kids and then kept acting. Much better actor than I am.
So the industry is sort of in your blood, eh?
Hmm. It sure is. It's like I've always liked. I've always loved theater. I've always loved the arts. I grew up around it. But I mean, obviously, stand-up's probably my first. It's my first love, and it's part of the reason I'm going back on tour. Starting in October, I'm going to be on tour in London. I'll be in London. I'll be all across Ontario on the "I'm Not Your Daddy" tour. So yeah, I'll never stop. Can't ever get away from show business.
Love it, love it. And I love that you're getting back into stand up. That's fantastic. Do you have any heckling stories that are pretty funny?
I mean, I don't think hecklers are ever particularly funny in general. I remember I did a show, I did a stand-up show. Where was I? I want to say Fort St. John, British Columbia. I was doing a theater show there, but I did a corporate the night before, and I got there at the curling rink. I knew it was a bad situation, and I'd never seen people drunker, and they did not want to listen to me at all. And then within a couple minutes, somebody wanted to get in a fight. I was egging him on because like the more I egged on this guy, the more they'd laugh, but he really wanted to fight. And then some other guy, I don't even remember. I was like maybe 10 minutes out of my closer, just walked out with his pants down and like was just showing off. He had nothing in prints, like, but he was full out, like he had his junk out, and it kind of got really awkward. I'm like, all right, I'm leaving, and then I left, and then I was like, guys, you're terrible. I'm not going to perform any longer for you guys. I don't have to do this. And they all felt so bad. They were such a bad audience, but they felt so bad that their friend came out naked that they all bought tickets to the theater show. And then they're like, "Wow, that was great. That was a really good show." I'm like, "Yeah, well, when people aren't hammered from drinking for 10 hours straight or walking around naked, the show goes great." So, yeah. But I'm at the age now where I'll deal with hecklers, but I draw the line at nudity. I'm like, "That's it. I'm out."
As we all should, I'm sure
Mhm.
it's not fun to see that.
Mhm.
Speaking of back to nudity, with you ziplining naked yourself, were you wearing like beige underwear, or how did that happen?
That scene's a while ago. That one, I believe we had a lot of extras there too. We had like hundreds of extras there on the day. So that one I had sort of a sock, like a sock that they put on my junk that they kind of like, it was sort of like the front part of underwear that it was taped on. And but yeah, that's generally what they do.
And did you tape it, or did you need a costume person to tape it?
A costume person helped me tape it on.
Wow.
Yeah, they're the unsung heroes of the film and television world. Nothing makes you appreciate your makeup artist more than when they're powdering your ass. When they're putting powder on your bare naked ass because you have to run through a field of people. But no, I've done a
And it was
fair.
too shiny.
Yes.
There was a glare on your ass.
For a person who's a comedian, I've done a lot more nudity kind of stuff than people would expect over the years. So I like to think my days doing that are mostly over. But you never know.
So, Working Moms, do you have a favorite moment working on that show?
I don't. Every year was fun on Working Moms. We always had a great time. The cast was great. I love Danny, who I played her husband, and I love Sadie, who played our daughter, and we just always had a good time joking around. So usually it was like just being on set with them and the crew in general, because you do 7 years, people have kids, people's parents die, like it feels like a family. You're learning about these people, you're going through stuff together. So it was those moments, but always I think it was in the first or second season. I remember Danny and I were doing some scene in bed, and we've been doing like 16-hour days, and we were so tired. It was the end of the day too. We literally kept falling asleep in between takes because they'd have to change cameras and move cameras. But it worked for the scene. It looked great. I couldn't tell you what scene it was. I couldn't even tell you what season it was. It was in the first couple seasons. But we were laughing about that at the Wrap last summer. So
how does your family deal with you kissing Danny and everything?
how's my family deal with me kissing co-stars? They have to deal with it. I told my wife, I'm going to kiss a whole bunch of ladies professionally. No, they don't care. It's all for money. It's all for money. I'll kiss for money. Look, they get used to it. It's so not a thing, I guess. It's hard to explain. It's so awkward doing it on sets and in movies and that kind of stuff. And I remember seeing my parents doing plays when I was a kid and seeing them kiss other people. And then they just explain, no, this is all part of the play. It's not real. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I never thought of it as that big a deal. My wife gets it. She gets it. And she also knows how she's an editor. So she knows how clinical everything is on set. It looks magical, looks very intimate, but there's 25 people standing around you and there's stuff happening and there's a plane going overhead, like all the stuff that it's not very intimate. It's very perfunctory, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Do you do conscientious things like make sure you don't eat onions for lunch and brush your teeth? And
I think generally speaking, if you're going to kiss somebody in a scene, you try not to eat junk food or smoke or do whatever you're going to do. But I do remember, I mean, again, like Danny's more like a sister than anybody else. I do remember we had to do some makeout scene or some sort of scene literally. And they came by and they were serving burritos. And we're like sitting there eating a burrito, like just out of the blue, like, who wants a burrito? Yeah, yeah. And we're like, oh, geez, we got to make out in like 30 seconds. We forgot about that. So that's what happens when you're shooting a scene with somebody who's like your sister.
a sister that you make out with. So Calgary.
A sister you make out with. Exactly. An Alabama sister.
One of my favorite lines that you said in Working Moms, and excuse me for butchering the quote, but something about wanting to be the prettiest boy at the dance for the wedding. It was so cute. Did you have any part in writing that, or?
I never wrote on the show, but I improvised a lot on the show, and a lot of my improvisations made it in. So I actually don't remember if that was an improv or not. It sounds like one, but it also sounds like it could have been a line in the script. But I would say we always did the takes as were said, and then we would always improvise. But then, I mean, when I booked that role, we improvised a lot because Catherine loves improv. She was a groundling, and it was Danny and I in the audition room. And as soon as we started like talking and going off book and adding stuff, you could just see everybody lit up a bit. So they like that chemistry. That definitely there was a lot of improv on set, but I can't remember it. So you do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on set. And you just get to a point where you're like, I can't remember what we even said anymore. I don't even remember. There's weeks where like, I don't remember what we shot yesterday because you just kind of get in the weeds.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any celebrities that you've met that you were starstruck?
Um, I don't, I think the most starstruck I got, I was doing Just for Laughs years ago, and I remember meeting like, oh, you know what? I saw John Cleese was sitting right next to me for a long time. And I always introduce myself to people. I'm like, I'm not afraid to go like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm a comedian. And that's burned me a few times by people who aren't friendly that I admired. But generally I don't, especially in an environment like Just for Laughs where you're a fellow performer, you feel like you have a right to say hi. But I just clammed up. I couldn't say anything to him. I was like, I know that he's a notoriously very friendly man. And he probably would have been like, oh, hello. But I wanted to leave him and let him have his coffee because it's like, oh, he's like comedy royalty. So that's the one time I'm like, I did not do it. But now I don't really get super starstruck anymore because you meet so many famous people over the years, and some of them are amazing or better than you can imagine. And some are just terrible. So you kind of just remind yourself that they're all just people, I guess.
Yeah, coworkers.
Sometimes coworkers, sometimes just people ordering a latte in front of you at Starbucks, you know?
Have you experienced any crazy fan situations?
Crazy fans. I mean, it's very cyclical depending on what you do. I haven't had any. I've definitely had to block a few people on social media over the years, but mostly people who are fans are very nice and very respectful. And like if I'm out with my kids, like when I'm in Disneyland with my kids, people don't stop us too much. But the second that like the kids go to the bathroom or I'm alone, that's when people come up and ask for photos, which is great. And I'm like, I'm always happy to take photos with people, but I also like the fact that people are giving space when you're with your out with your family, out with your kids. So never too much. But I did have to, I think around Going the Distance, I was also on YTV on something else, but around that time I had to unlist my number because I was getting calls. It was back in the day of the white pages, and my phone number is in the white pages. So I started getting calls. So I'm like, okay, I got to take my phone offline. But that was it.
But nothing too extreme, like women haven't sent marriage proposals or saying you're the best husband, TV husband ever.
Yeah, you definitely get some Lionel fans. You definitely get some fans of different generations from different things. A lot of working moms fans. Uh, but yeah, nothing too crazy. Sometimes at comedy shows, people get a little hammered and they'll be really excited, and you're like, but no, it's never. People are cool. People are generally very nice and very friendly, and I try to be equally so. So I get it. I know what it's like meeting people who are on. Like I don't think of myself as a celebrity, but I get the fact that I'm on shows and stuff that people recognize and really love, and I know what it's like to really love something. You know, if you really enjoy it, you want to meet people who are part of it, and I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're asking all the guys, Men's Health,
Mhm.
what kind of underwear they are wearing.
Oh, I have no idea. Good kind, some kind of fancy kind. Always boxers. I think. Who wears briefs still? What's this? What are we in the army in the 1950s?
Fantastic. Cancel culture. Are you feeling that your topics that you talk about or anything can be offensive, or that you've gotten any repercussions from it?
I mean, I've always just done my act. I've never really worried about cancel culture. I think it's somewhat overblown. I think if you're a comic and you just stick your guns, I mean, my act is definitely an adult comedy show. So, I mean, I feel like most adults get it. Not everyone's going to like my style of humor. No one's going to agree with me. But also, I've always had the point of view where I'm like, if you don't like what I do, then you don't have to stay. You don't have to stick around and watch the show. But I do feel like people who complain about comedy are kind of losers, and I don't really take it seriously that much. But I also think that a lot of comics cry foul, like, "Oh, cancel culture! I can't say what I want to say." Well, like if you can't say what you want to say, then it was probably so horrible and not funny enough that I've never had that problem. And I've put some super offensive bits out there over the years that have all I remember arguing with CBC about a bit to make it on air, and they're like, "You can't say that." I'm like, "I guarantee you will get a laugh," and it got a laugh, and it made it on the air. And it's one of those things. Everyone's concerned about cancel culture, but if it's funny, and you're just that's all that matters. It doesn't even matter if it's true, just if it's funny.
What was the bit that you were arguing with CBC about? Do you remember?
It was I can't even remember the joke anymore, but it was just going back a ways. But it was slander. It was something about Newfoundland. I can't remember. It was something. What was it? It was something. It had something to do with like Canada and the oil rig, the oil patch, and Newfoundlanders, and they were called Newfies in the bit. It was all these. It wasn't even that offensive, but it was like immediately the networks was trying to shut it down. I can't remember what the sticking point was. If it was, say, Newfie or a swear or some innuendo, I can't remember. But it wasn't. It ended up being on the thing.
But good for you for sticking to your guns and saying, like, this is funny, let's put it on.
Well, but again, it wasn't even that. I mean, the bit doesn't even stick in my brain too much, but I think that's why I was so offended. I'm like, this is such a nothing burger to be offended about. And then, I mean, at the Halifax Comedy Festival, I always go over the line when I'm taping there because I know that I give them some bits they can use, and then I'll do stuff for myself that's fun. And they're fine with it. They're fine with it. Most people are fine with it. I think that the cancel culture vibe has actually been good for comedy because people want to see kind of shocking stuff. And now they go to comedy clubs expecting to be a little shocked. So it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you want our audience to know about that's going on?
Just the number one thing is go to my website, ryanbelleville.com, or you can go to Hubcat Promotions, and you can see the tour, the I'm Not Your Daddy tour. I'm doing a theater tour across Canada right now. It starts October 4th, and it's going until December. This is the first leg. We're doing just Ontario, and then we'll be hitting the Maritimes in the spring, and they'll be going out west after that, and hopefully up north to the territories. But 18 theaters, 18 cities and towns in Ontario starting October 4th.
Phenomenal.
Tickets on sale now.
Well, Ryan, I can't thank you enough. You still look 22.
Thank you.
With the salt and pepper going on. But, do you skin regiment or what's your secret? Just, youthful.
Good genes, I guess. Just good genes, I think. That I got the young face, the good genes, lots of sunscreen. Stay out of the sun. That's the big one. Even though I got this nice tan, this is like trying to stay out of the sun in California. You still get a tan with this. So. Yeah. All right, Carrie Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you, and have a wonderful night, eh?
Oh, cheers. You too, eh? Right on. Ciao.
And if you could just do one last thing for me.
Sure.
If you could just say it loud, say it proud. I love Newsload.
Oh, yes. I love Newsload.
Thanks, Ryan.
No problem. Ciao.
Bye.
This is the Newsload.